Okay, so I've just pulled this tosai out. It's actually a homebred shower, and it's come back from the koi show, but there's something that's quite concerning. If I look on the mouth, it seems to have a little wound. If I can just zoom in there and you guys can see. Look at that, a little wound on the bottom lip. So I've got to sort that out pretty quickly. Those things just get worse. I mean, it looks like an ulcer. So I'm going to do a potassium dip to sort that out, and then I'll follow it up with another one in a couple of days. I found with areas like the mouth of the fish, the only way you can actually sort that out and really deal with it properly is a decent potassium dip. So I'm going to show you guys now how to do a potassium dip on a fish, and it's the best way to get rid of ulcers. So regardless if it's on the mouth or anywhere else on the fish, spot it early. That's the important thing, and then get stuck into it as quickly as you can. Okay, the first thing you do is you get yourself a really decent scale that can measure individual grams. And then you get a bowl that you can measure in, and you essentially neutralize the weight of the bowl so that you're starting from 0. And then with potassium you need to weigh out 1 gram per 10 liters. So I like to put about 30 liters of water into the bowl for dipping, so I need to have 3 grams worth of potassium. Okay, so that's the potassium permanganate I'm using. Here it says 1 gram per 10 liters for 7 minutes. I tend to go for 5 minutes just to test it out, depending on the strength of the potassium. Weirdly enough, sometimes it's stronger than at other times, but 1 gram per 10 liters, and the amount of minutes determines the intensity. So 1 gram per 10 liters, and I do for 5 minutes. If it's a doitsu fish, you must do it for less. I do it for much less. What you want to see is just that the potassium has had some effect on the wound itself. So if you don't know what potassium permanganate looks like, it's that stuff there. Don't get it anywhere else but in the container and in the bowl that you need to put it into. I mean, it's a real mess. When it gets wet, it oxidizes anything, and it's dirty, it stains your hands. I mean, they always say you must wear gloves. You know, I don't really put gloves on, but at the same time, I'm not messing on myself. So that's what the scale looks like at the moment. I've measured out 3, it's just cleared itself. And that's 3 grams worth of potassium permanganate measured out. Don't try and do this manually. Make sure you get a scale. It's the best way to get it right. You can't take chances. So I put the fish in a see-through bowl. There you can see the nasty ulcer on the bottom lip. That's what we need to sort out. Let's see if he'll come around again. Okay, so this is my first 10 liters in. I'm just stirring the potassium around a bit. Now remember, it's tiny granules, so they need to dissolve in the water. So that's the first 10 liters. My bowl is pretty much clean, and now I'm going to put in the other 2 buckets. Okay, so I've got 30 liters in my bowl, and I've got 3 grams of potassium. I stir this around a bit. I mean, obviously when I put the water in, a lot of the potassium started dissolving anyway, but you really want to just stir it around and let it stand for a couple of minutes to make sure that the potassium is as strong as it possibly can be, because you've already done the measurements. Okay, so now I'm gonna let it stand for like a minute or 2. Just make sure that as much as possible is dissolved, and then I'm gonna set a timer and put the fish in for 5 minutes. Okay, because this fish isn't so big, I've literally just put it into a normal big fish net, and I'm just holding him in the water like that. If I let him loose in the water, then I'd battle to catch him, and my hands would get dirty, or I'd battle to kind of find him in the water, and it might take extra time. This is just easier. Leave him in the net for 5 minutes and let the potassium do its work. With bigger fish, you're obviously going to have to put them in the bowl, and use a bigger bowl as well. If you see there's any kind of massive struggling from the fish that it wants to get out, or it's not enjoying this at all, I prefer to take him out then and put him back into the pond. But you can see this one is pretty calm. It's not doing anything crazy at the moment. And the potassium is doing its work. It's actually oxidizing all those nasties in that wound. So it's cleaning that wound out completely. Anything that it's oxidized will actually go brown. So you'll see if it gets onto your hand. So if it's organic matter, it's going to turn brown. So if you get on your hand or on anything else, it turns brown. The wound on that fish's mouth will turn brown. And then just so that we don't stress the fish too much, and obviously because this potassium strips the slime coat off the fish as well to a certain extent, you don't want to do it too often. So give it a couple of days to recover. So I would say what I'm going to do here is possibly skip tomorrow and then do another dip on today's Saturday, do another dip on Monday, and then before I do a third dip, I'll basically check and see. As soon as I can see that there's definitely improvement happening, the wound is healing, then I stop. But this is a really good start. And the sooner you get this caught, the sooner you can treat it. It really, really is important that you get it early. If you wait too long, the damage is huge. But as I said, ulcers inside the mouth of the fish, this potassium can get right in there and treat it. You can never treat that topically. I mean, how are you going to get the medicine onto the wound itself? You can treat an ulcer on the side of a fish topically by putting medication on, using peroxide, a light peroxide maybe on the wound, and then putting some kind of wound seal on. But the fact is, when the ulcer's in the mouth and it's tricky like this, you want to treat it properly. Also with a small fish, it's difficult to treat. So this is the best way. I'm going to wait 5 minutes now. When the 5 minutes are up, the fish is going to go back into the pond. Okay, so the 5 minutes are up. I've put him back into the original bowl. Now you'll see, look at the brown marking on the mouth. You can see it's not red anymore, it's brown. So what's ended up happening is lots of oxidation has taken place. So the potassium has done its magic. So it's important to get him out and not to damage him. Obviously this stuff is poisonous anyway, but it's killing the germs and not the bacteria, not the fish. So he'll go back into the pond now. I'll do another treatment in 2 days' time. If you left him in too long, you damage the gills, and then the fish is done. So you need to be very careful with this. You need to measure properly. I mean, don't take this thing lightly, and as I said, get onto these things as quickly as possible. There you can see a bit of browning on the side of the fins as well. I mean, it is possible completely that there'll be bacteria on the fish, across the fish, not just on the mouth. So the mouth could just be the start of it, but if I'd left this, that would have just eaten into the fish's mouth, into its face. Maybe it would have got other ulcers, but ultimately it would have died. I mean, there's a small chance it could heal itself, but once it takes hold, the stuff is quite aggressive. What I'll show you guys tomorrow is how to treat the whole pond, because obviously, with this one having an ulcer, I'm worried about what else is in the water. I've just come back from a koi show, so anything is possible. I'm now going to treat the pond with a light potassium dose tomorrow, just to kind of bring down that bacterial load if there is any bacteria in the water. And obviously at this point, I'm also going to be very careful and check the rest of my fish to make sure that there's no other nasties on any of the other fish. What I might do now is pull out one of the other small ones that was at the show, just check his mouth as well to make sure that he's fine. But this is quite sad because it's one of my best fish, homebred tosai. But at the same time, this is part of koi keeping. You just got to deal with it when it comes up.